Well, I want to talk about the teachable moments that we have been experiencing lately and why there's a missing element to these teachable moments. Two African American men, Rashawn Nelson and Dante Robinson, both 23 years old, were arrested April the 12th at a Starbucks in Philadelphia after the store's manager said they were not paying customers and were not entitled to any of the upscale cafe's amenities. In other words, they were trespassing. After protests urging a national boycott of Starbucks, the men have reached undisclosed settlements with the parent company, and each has agreed to a $1 symbolic settlement with the city in exchange for $200,000 to be given to support a program for minority entrepreneurs. Two Native American men were part of an organized tour of Colorado State University on Monday when campus police showed up and detained them for questioning. A white woman who was on the tour with her daughter had called in a report that the Native American men on the tour were, quote, making her nervous, unquote. The Denver Post reported this story yesterday. After campus security questioned the men, they left the tour and the campus and returned to their home in New Mexico. The CSU officials tried to reach out to them to apologize, but it appears the damage has already been done. Just two examples. And here is the reason I'm citing these two examples. Because we are encouraged to believe that, yes, these are very nasty events. They should not have happened, but they did. Lapse of judgment in management and people who are conducting tours of a university and so forth. Okay, we get all that. But nonetheless, even with all of the transactions going on, the undisclosed settlements and disclosed settlements, and all of that, all of the reports of feel-good efforts to make up for what clearly was a crazy set of attitudes. That's not the story to me. That's not the story to me at all. We even had a recent story of a young man who worked at the White House, at the Obama White House, Darren D. Martin. This is just this past Friday, attempting to move into his new apartment. He relocated back to the city of New York and got a walk-up, a fifth-floor walk-up apartment. I was just trying to move in and found himself surrounded by 6 cops, guilty of moving while black. Somebody, when he asked, well, what are you guys doing here? Somebody, he was told by the cops, somebody in the building called in a report of a burglary in progress. And with the possibility that the person that they were talking about had a large weapon. Okay, so this is now getting me closer to my point. I am saying we have to question in all of this, although they apologized again and it became clear that he was not trying to break into anybody's apartment. He was simply trying to move into his own and all of that. In the immediate situation at Starbucks, at the University of Colorado, in the Upper West Side, as they're calling Harlem these days, you know, a man is moving in, and it was all a mix-up. Okay, but look at the role of the police. In each instance, in the very middle of all of this, when some kind of judgment could have been made as to the legitimacy of the complaint and the request. I mean, at the Starbucks, the manager demanded that the police arrest two people who had committed no crime. And what did the police do? The police moved in and arrested two people who had committed no crime. Nothing in their training gave them permission to arrest two people who committed no crime. But they did anyway. And they did so at the direct insistence of this white female manager who essentially was the choreographer of this whole distasteful event. I'm not concerned about whether they settled or didn't settle or whatever it is they wanted to do. I'm saying, look at the role of the police in a situation where they're responding clearly to a situation in which a white female, it could have been a white male, it would have made no difference in that sense, but somebody white called in a complaint, and automatically the police switch from keepers of the law to a goon squad. Suddenly they have no independent sense at all of what was the right thing to do in any of these situations. Nobody of the platoon that responded to Starbucks and this crazy manager who said that these men were trespassing because they were waiting for a friend to come to meet them there so that they could have a meeting about a business project. One crazy woman picks up the phone and says, "We want these people out of here." Is that the job of the police? To obey you? To not question your prerogatives or desires? To be, in effect, your private goon squad? There's nobody on the whole police department who at that very moment was able to evaluate the situation and determine pretty quickly this was not the role of the police. The role of police was not to effect an arrest for trespassing because the manager of the establishment has determined that they must go. By what law? You see, so I don't pay attention to what comes afterwards, when they've figured it out and everybody wants to hold hands and sing kumbaya and people want to make settlements and whatnot. Let us look at the role of the police in the specific instant. They should have been the ones to subject the manager to questioning. By what right, by what law do you insist on putting people out of your establishment? By what law? By what right? Because that is justice when you do your job right. She clearly wasn't doing her job right. And she had control over the cops. The cops proceeded not to do their jobs right. I find it fascinating that no one is questioning the role of the cops here. And by the way, the fact that the cops did not do what they were supposed to do, it meant that these men's lives at that moment could have been in danger. If they decided at that moment to assert their rights to be in Starbucks, it could have gone from just, look, fellas, let's just keep this thing cool and sort it out later, but for now, you got to leave. It could have gone way off the rails if those men who would have been correct to assert their rights, if they did just that. Some woman, it's a college tour. These two young Native American men decided to participate in an organized event. They didn't just pop in. This is an organized event. And they had as much right to be there as this crazy woman who decided she was so fearful. She was fearful of the fact that two Native American men were on the same tour as she and her precious daughter. They're all trying to figure out, is this the right school for me? But no. The interference comes because this woman suddenly is insecure and fearful, i.e., racist as hell. And she had the power and the authority by herself to change all the rules and to make it possible for her to prevail so that she can feel secure. And these two young men who were there also to figure out whether this was the right college for them. They came on the tour. They were not strangers. They were not unexpected. They were part of the organized tour. She is insecure, so they had to go. Now, what role did the police play in this? Afterwards, a lot of phone calls went back and forth, and the college president was so apologetic. I don't care about that. First of all, I think they should sue the pants off of these folks. Get as much money as you can. Sue them to the hilt. But I'm talking here about the role of the police, which we seldom discuss in matters that go bad real fast and very often end up costing people their lives. Why should, because a white woman is insecure and she's so afraid because two people who owned, who were part of the First Nations people that owned all the land in Colorado, that they should come along on a tour, an innocent thing like that, And you, with your messed up mind, your horrible racist attitude, get the police involved, and the police essentially do their bidding. These two young men should not have been forced or felt the need to remove themselves from seeing to their future. They're there looking to see whether this college is the right place for them. They cleared out, they left the tour, they went back home. Nothing happens to this woman. And the police are okay. Of course, everything is post facto. They make the calls all afterwards. The college president is so upset. And I don't care how upset you are. Why is it that in order to arrive at a point where we have a civil society, the victims have to first play the role of rehabilitators, and secondly, absorb the costs and the penalties to make this world better? It's not their job. And here we see the example of how the police themselves express their own internalized racism. The word of any complainant who is white against any complainant who is not is what they follow. This young man is trying to move into an apartment. He's coming back to the city. And he is met up with 6 cops. Of course, they're all armed. What if he were to have reacted in a different way? He would have been endangering his own life. The cops didn't feel obliged to check out the complainant. The cops acted only on the information they had from the complainant. They didn't talk to this woman. They didn't interview her. They didn't ask her, what did you see? What did the person look like? And she gave all these details. A person carrying a large weapon. That man could have been shot down like a dog in the hallway, just trying to move into his new apartment. And all because the police refused to do the job that the police ought to do. In as much as you are responding to a complaint, the complainant is right there in the building. Go knock on the door. Hello, Miss Complainant. Tell us what you saw. What did the guy look like? No. They are so trained to hate people of color that they can use information from a piece of paper taken down by whoever took the complaint at the precinct, and on the basis of that alone, they can show up armed and ready to arrest this person. If he resisted at all, he would have been putting his life in danger. Now, this is often the missing equation in a whole bunch of things that end up with people getting killed. And we see over and over again, these are just 3 recent examples. Why should 2 Native American men trying to get their lives together involved in very, very plausible and and encouraging work of going to see a university as part of a planned tour. Why should they, after police questioning, nobody asked the woman, well, what the hell are you doing here? They're doing the same thing. Why does she automatically have rights and privileges that these two young men do not have and don't enjoy? Why should they be snatched off the tour and be subjected to close questioning by the campus police in order to see how close the complainant came to the accuracy of the complaint? They're not responsible for somebody feeling so intimidated by their mere presence. They've become so fearful. And then it is legitimized. Nobody asks them. Nobody asks this woman, why are you so fearful? Why do you have reason to be fearful of these two men? Nobody asks that question. She's entitled to be fearful. And because she's entitled to be fearful, they must comply with being sequestered, moved out of this tour of a college. Their purpose and their business cut short because they were there to evaluate the college to see whether it was a match for them. And they're the ones under the gun, literally, until they just decided, we don't need to be here. And that, too, is a function of police. The police function usually is raised when somebody is dead. Well, how did he end up dead? How did he end up dead? Very often it's these trivial matters that are compounded by the police not subjecting the complainants to the kind of scrutiny that they automatically subject the innocent people to. I've seen so many times cases where this happens, and it still continues. And then we hear, after some kind of confrontation, as with the Starbucks case, isn't it nice that they're all together, these two young men? Isn't it nice of them to be so generous and so kind after being treated the way they were treated? Isn't it really a very laudable thing? I'm not in the business of trying to be laudable. I don't care whether people think I'm laudable or not. The question is, at the very moment when the police presence at Starbucks should have produced an entirely different result, which was to ask the manager, well, what are they doing wrong? Did they break up your saucers and cups? Did they steal some of your macchiato? What did they do? I'm asking you because now you call the police, you call us the police to effect, essentially, an eviction from a store on the basis that they are trespassing. Nobody asks the manager, what does the word trespassing mean? Here, right now, what does it mean? Define it. Define how it is that these people must be removed from premises, and we, the police, are to be the people to effect the eviction. How did that come to be my role? How did it come to be the case that you, the manager, get to tell me what I'm supposed to do to make you happy, even if it is not really within the confines of the law? You see. So we have these unspoken truths that upon coming into a situation like this, the police come into it predisposed to doing the bidding of a white person at the expense of the black people. There's no question being asked. There's no rationale being demanded. Constitutional rights, did you say? Who has constitutional rights? Constitutional rights are given and approved of by the manager, the crazy woman. She is the one who is now the arbiter of constitutional law. At the University of Colorado, a fearful racist woman is the person who's calling the shots because they allowed her to. And they allowed her to do so because immediately it is recognized that she's the one calling the shots. Nobody has questioned her. Ma'am, how long have you been crazy? How long have you been a racist? How long have you harbored these racist feelings about Native American men? Why do you think that we are to obey your rules or your requests to make you feel safe in your racism, and to remove them from the campus when they're here to do the same thing you're doing? Why should they go and you stay? You come to arrest a supposed burglar, 6 cops with guns. People don't even understand what that was. That was a moment of true terror. Some crazy white tenant in the building makes a complaint. A squad is dispatched because no doubt the complaint included a physical description. Well, you know, he's one of them. That person does not pay a price for making a racist complaint. Instead, the police, in order for her to feel safe, the police now switch the agenda. Her agenda is now what is literally governing everything. And this is where we are. This is the basis of a lot of the transactions between the police and we, the citizens, or us, the citizens. The cops are not in charge. Nobody has any direction from higher-ups in a police precinct as to how they are supposed to respond. People make complaints all the time. That doesn't mean they are the law. It could very well be that they themselves are breaking the law. But we have to end this cycle of the victims of racism themselves having to rehabilitate or pay the price for rehabilitating their racist attackers, their racist exploiters. That's not our job. And we have to get to this question of what is the standing order when police officers are dispatched in order to investigate a crime or an alleged crime or a complaint. Under what power are they operating? That's the question.